So until now, we only know how to solve quadratic equations and of course linear equations, right? But now we want to be able to solve equations of higher order as well, as in equations that have a higher degree, cubic equation, quartic equations. We can solve such equations given that we have some additional information. So we'll learn how to do that. Just bear with me for a while and let me copy this question. Let me start with this and use this particular example to understand this concept. Solving polynomial equations. We're using question number 9 for this from the worksheet. This is how it looks like. The polynomial x raised to power 4 plus 3x cubed plus ax plus 3, it's denoted by p of x. And it's given that p of x is divisible by x squared minus x plus 1. We are asked to find first the value of a in this. That's the first part. Find the value of a given that p of x is divisible by x squared minus x plus 1. Now, what does divisible by mean? This means that x squared minus x plus 1 is basically a factor. Right? Divisible by means that this expression that we've got at the end, x squared minus x plus 1, it's a factor of this polynomial. And what does a factor mean? Factor means that the remainder that you're going to get is equal to 0. If we were to divide this polynomial by that expression, the remainder is going to be 0. Now, how do you find remainder? So all you have to do is you have to find the remainder and put that remainder equal to 0. And that is going to help you find the value of a. Now, how do you find the remainder? Can we use the remainder theorem here? Remember, remainder theorem can only be used when the divisor is linear. Is this linear? It's not. It's x squared minus x plus 1. It's a quadratic expression. So we cannot use remainder theorem here. What can we do then? We can do long division. Let's do that. We write the polynomial, the dividend here in the middle first, x raised to power 4 plus 3x cubed. Now, the quadratic term is missing. So we put 0x squared in place of that. And next we've got ax plus 3. We want to divide this by x squared minus x plus 1. This is the division that we want to do here. Now, what do we multiply x squared by to get x raised to power 4? We do multiplied by x squared. You multiply x squared with this whole thing. That gives you x raised to power 4 minus x cubed plus x squared. Now you change the signs. This becomes minus, this becomes plus, minus. This gets cancelled, and we have 3x cubed plus x cubed, which is 4x cubed. 0x squared minus x squared, that's minus x squared, plus ax plus 3. Now, what do you multiply x squared by to get 4x cubed? You multiply it by 4x. So 4x into this whole thing now. That gives you 4x cubed minus 4x squared plus 4x. Again, what you do is you change the signs. This becomes minus, plus, minus. This gets cancelled. Minus x squared plus 4x squared, that is 3x squared, plus ax minus 4x, plus ax minus 4x. This is the x term. It's often actually better to write it like this instead. What's the coefficient of x going to be here? A minus 4. A minus 4 whole times x. This is what we're getting here. And then we just take down 3 as it is, bring down 3 as it is. This is 3. What do you multiply x squared by to get 3x squared now? You multiply it by 3. 3 into that whole thing. That gives you 3x squared minus 3x, and we change the signs. So it becomes minus, plus, minus. This gets cancelled. What do we get from here? 3 and minus 3 also get cancelled. A minus 4 plus, which is actually a minus 1 whole times x. This is what the remainder is turning out to be. We can't go any further in this division. But why? Because the degree of the remainder is less than the degree of the divisor. So we can't go any further. We stop at this point, and this is our remainder. A minus 1 whole raised to power x. This is the remainder. Now, since x squared minus x plus 1 was a factor, this remainder has to equal 0. It's necessary for this remainder to be equal to 0. So that's what we do then. We put this remainder equal to 0. That gives us a minus 1 whole times x equals 0. And that gives us a minus 1 equal to 0. A equals 1 here. That's the value of a that we get. Okay. Now the second part says when a has this value, find the real roots of the equation p of x equals 0. So we have to solve this equation p of x equals 0 in this case. Now what's p of x? P of x is this polynomial that we had in the first part. Let me just write that here. P of x equal to 0. The polynomial is x raised to power 4 plus 3x cubed plus ax plus 3. This is p of x. That is equal to 0. We need to solve this particular equation. All right. Now, this is a quartic equation, power 4. We don't know of a way of solving this equation directly. We only know how to solve quadratic equations and linear equations for now. We don't know how to solve cubic equations or quartic equations or any higher power. So what do we do for this? We try to break it down into its factors that we can actually then deal with. It's a quartic equation, but we try to factorize the left-hand side somehow. Now, what have we done in the previous part? From the previous part, we know that one factor of this polynomial is x squared minus x plus 1. That's what is given. So x squared minus x plus 1, this is one factor that we know about. And remember, when we divide when we divide a polynomial by its factor, in this case, it was x squared minus x plus 1, the quotient that we get here, that is also a factor, right? So the other factor that we got for this polynomial is going to be x squared plus 4x plus 3. That is the other factor, x squared plus 4x plus 3. So we had this quartic equation. We broke it down into two parts like this. We factorized that quartic equation, and from that, we got these two quadratic factors. And now what we can do is we can say, since this product is equal to 0, that means either x squared minus x plus 1 is equal to 0 or x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. One of these two has to be true. All right. And now you solve these two equations separately. They're both quadratic equations. We know how to solve them. So we can solve them separately. Right. Let's see what we get from them. X squared minus x plus 1 equals 0. Can we factorize this? So we need to get 1 when we multiply. So we can't factorize this. What we can do is we can apply the quadratic formula. Minus into minus 1 plus minus square root of minus 1 whole squared minus 4 into 1 divided by 2 times 1. And we'll figure out you get a negative inside the square root. So that means this part of the equation has no solution. You don't get anything from this. No real solution. Okay, so this part has no real solution. Let's look at the other part now. This factor. Can we do midterm breaking here? We can. We can actually write it as x squared plus 3x plus x plus 3 equals 0. And that gives us two factors, x plus 3 and x plus 1. And that gives us either x equals minus 3 or x equals minus 1. These are the two answers that we've got. So whenever we've got to solve an equation like this, which is a higher power than a quadratic, what we have to do is we have to break it down into its factors. Generally, what's going to happen is they're going to give us one factor already. Like in this case, they gave us one factor. And we divide by that factor to find the other factor. We did that in the first part already. And then we write this in the factorized form. We break it into two equations and then solve those two equations separately because they, in this case, turn out to be quadratic. We know how to solve quadratic equations and we get our solution from that. Now, let's take another example now. Let's take another example. In this case, what they did was they gave us one factor in the first part. We knew this factor. We could find the other factor by dividing by this, right? So we divided this polynomial by x squared minus x plus 1. And that gave us this other factor, all right? Now, sometimes what would happen is you would not be given any factor. That's rare, but that has happened at least once in the past papers. Let's think about that. Let me write down an equation here, which looks like this. We want to solve 16x cubed minus 24x squared minus 15x minus 2 equals 0. This is an equation that we've got. All right. And what we want to do is we want to solve this equation. It's a cubic equation. We don't really have a method for solving cubic equations directly. At least at this point, we don't know that in A levels. We don't know how to solve this equation directly. And we're not even given any factor. If we knew that we have a factor, we could divide by that and then find the other factor, and then we would solve this equation like that. But we're not given any factor here. So this can also sometimes happen that they will not give us any factor. Okay. And we still have to solve this somehow. In such problems, you will be able to guess one answer somehow. Okay. So you have to guess one answer first. And how does that work? You look at this constant term. The constant term here, which is minus 2. You look at this term. Whenever you get a question like this in which you have to solve this and they haven't given any factor, what would happen would be that there would always be at least one integer solution for this equation, right? So maybe some integer solution. So for example, x equals 5 is an integer solution. So you'll have one integer solution for this equation. And you would be able to guess that solution. How would you guess that? Whenever a polynomial has an integer solution. So whenever such an equation has an integer solution, it's always a factor of this constant term. जो end वाली term होती है ना, हमेशा इसका factor हो सकता है, इसके अलावा कुछ नहीं हो सकता. Okay, let me write that down. Whenever a polynomial equation has an integer solution, It's always one of the factors of the constant term. In the polynomial. Now, this is the polynomial that we've got. 16x cube minus 24x square minus 15x minus 2. Since you're not given any factor, what you can do is you can guess one solution. How would you do that? You'll pick up this number and you'll try out factors of this number. So two के factors क्या होते हैं? You've got 1 and you've got 2. These are the only two factors that you've got for the number 2. But you don't just try 1 and 2, you try plus minus 1, so you try plus 1 and then minus 1, and also plus minus 2, so you try plus 2 and minus 2. If there's any integer solution for this equation, it can only be one of these four numbers. It cannot be anything apart from these numbers. All right. So what you do now is you try these numbers one by one. You check x equals 1. X equals 1 and see what that gives you. X equals 1 इसके अंदर input करते. That gives us 16 into 1 cube minus 24 into 1 squared minus 15 into 1 minus 2, and see that what that gives you. Okay. Now in this case, 16 minus 24, that's minus 8, and minus 17, that's minus 25. So this doesn't work. It doesn't equal 0. This is not a solution. You try another number, minus 1. Input minus 1 in this and see what that gives you. Minus 1 will give you minus 16, minus 24, that's minus 40, and minus 25, minus 2. No. Can somebody try this and let me know what you get from this? Minus 1. What does that give you? Is it minus 27? If you input minus 1 in this, does it turn out to be minus 27? Can somebody do this quickly?
जी सर minus 27 आ रहा है.
Okay, so this is minus 27. So this also does not satisfy, doesn't work. Okay, try another number. So next we've got 2, right? 8 numbers try karne the. So we try 2. What does 2 give us?
2 से 0
16
आ रहा
into
है.
2 cube. Okay, so we get 0 from this. This satisfies. So that means x equals 2 is a solution of this equation. So you'll basically have to guess one solution. All right, you'll have to guess one solution. Okay.
Correct question.
So you're using hit and trial here to guess the solution. All right. Yes. Sulaiman.
सर ये वाली जो वर्किंग है सर ये हम सारी कैलकुलेटर पे कर सकते हैं.
No.
मेंशन करने की जरूरत है.
Yes, you can do this whole thing on your calculator.
ठीक है. Thank you.
Okay, you don't have to show the working purpose. So x equals 2 is a solution. If x equals 2 is a solution, that means what would be a factor? X minus 2 is a factor. Okay. Why? Because remember when we solve equations, if we have this at the end of an equation, for instance, x plus 3 is a factor and x plus 1 is a factor. What are they giving us? They're giving us x equals minus 3 and x equals minus 1. So now we've got this solution. We want to go back to the factor. What we can do is we can say, since x equals 2 is a solution, we could write it like this first. x minus 2 equals 0. If x equals 2, that means x minus 2 equals 0. This thing now, this is a factor. X minus 2 is a factor. So now we know one factor of this polynomial. Mostly they will tell you this factor themselves, but it is possible, like in this problem, that they don't tell you anything. You have to figure it out yourself by hit and trial. Okay, like we did here. So now we've got one factor, the rest of it remains just like any other problem. So you had this polynomial 16x cubed minus 24x squared minus 15x minus 2 equals 0. We know that x minus 2 is a factor of this polynomial. So how do you find the other factors? You do long division. Okay. 16x cubed minus 24x squared minus 15x minus 2. You divide this by x minus 2. What do you multiply x by to get 16x cubed? You get 16x squared here, 16x squared to that whole thing. That's 16x cubed minus 32x squared. Change the signs. This becomes minus plus. This gets cancelled. Then we have 8x squared minus 15x minus 2. What do you multiply x by to get 8x squared? You multiply this by 8x into that whole thing. That gives us 8x squared minus 16x. Again, change the signs, becomes minus plus, and you get x minus 2. What do you multiply x by to get x? You multiply it by 1 into that whole thing. That's x minus 2. Again, change the signs. Minus this plus, this gets cancelled, and you have 0 at the end. That confirms x minus 2 is the factor, but now you have the other factor that's in the quotient, which is 16x squared plus 8x plus 1. So now that polynomial that we had at the top can be written as x minus 2 into 16x squared plus 8x plus 1 equals 0. We can solve this equation further and see what we get from this. So one is, of course, x minus 2 equals 0. We already know this, x equals 2. And now we solve the other equation, 16x squared plus 8x plus 1 equals 0. We can do a midterm breaking if we want here. 16x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. And this is going to give us 4x plus 1 and 4x plus 1. These are two factors that we get from this, 4x plus 1 whole square. And that gives us x equals minus 1 over 4. These are the two solutions that we've got for this equation. X equals 2 and x equals minus 1 over 4. So when you're not given a factor already, you have to basically find that yourself by hit and trial. You have to guess it. And then the rest of the process remains exactly the same as before.